Hey guys, we're going to talk today about one of my favorite subjects. So these are knots. I love knots for some reason. I don't know why. I'm a freak, I'm a weirdo, but I really like knots. I enjoy ropes, I enjoy rope work, I like macrame, I like all kinds of things. I mean, I make keychains, and you can see my keychain right here. It's kind of smashed up right now, but it's a little cross I tied with some, I can't remember what that's called, a snake knot maybe or something like that. But anyway, I use knots all the time. It's one of my favorite things. And I think it was So and Tear that suggested I do a video showing different kinds of knots and what they're used for. So we're going to talk about some of the main knots that I think everybody should know how to tie. So let's start with a few simple ones, and then we'll move on to some more complex ones. All right, the first knot that I want to talk about is a square knot. It's probably one of the basic knots that everybody should know how to tie. It's really used for tying two lengths of rope together that are the same diameter. So I've got two pieces of paracord here. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. You can put the right one over the left one, spin it around, and then you take your left one, put it over the right one, put it through, and tie it tight. And you should get, that's what they call a square knot. You get these two pieces that you can kind of work like that. That's a square knot, and that's going to hold tight. Now that is the sign of a good knot, a knot that's going to hold tight and is easy to untie. And you can easily untie it. I don't care if that's been tied for a long time, it's going to easily come apart. So that is a great knot to know if you're tying two ropes together that are the same diameter. So now if they are different diameter ropes, you're going to use something else we're going to call I believe this is called a sheet bend. I can't remember exactly. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. You take the bigger rope, just pretend this is a bigger diameter rope, bigger around. You'll take the smaller one, go through, wrap it around, and back up through itself. Just like that, and then pull tight. And that is your sheet bend knot. That will hold really, really well. And again, it's easy to untie. So I'll show you that one more time. Make a bite, that's called a bite. It's just fold the rope over, take your smaller diameter rope, go up through the middle, take it all the way around, try to get my fingers out of the way, and then back up and through itself. Just like that, pull it tight. That's a sheet bend. All right, if you need to attach a rope to a post, there's a couple of ways you can do it. One of the preferred ways to do that is what we call double half hitch. So it's pretty simple. You're going to wrap the rope around the pole. You're going to go under and back through. That's a half hitch. And then you do one more, go in the same direction, back through, and you've got a double half hitch. Now the nice thing about this is that this can be tied way out and then tightened up. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So you don't have to tie it up real close. You can tie this way out here. Take the rope again around and through, and then around and through one more time. You've got two half hitches. You can tie that up way out here and then pull it tight to the pole. That is a good way to attach a rope to a pole if you need it to be stable, need it to be stationary, not move. This will cinch up pretty tight. It won't slide up and down the pole. It'll hold, and it's really easy to untie when you're done. I say that, I can't grab a hold of it. There we go. There we go. Another way to attach a rope to a pole or to a tarp, this is my preferred method if I'm tying to a tarp, or something where it doesn't matter if the rope is moving up and down, if I'm just like a stationary point. This is my favorite knot to tie. It's called a bowline, or a bow line is what I typically call it, but I think I'm wrong. So it's pretty easy. I'll show you how we teach the Boy Scouts to do it, or how we taught the Boy Scouts. I'm not part of the Boy Scouts anymore, but I was. So you make a loop. Make sure your leading edge is underneath the rope on top. And then what we always told them was the rabbit comes out of the hole, goes around the tree, and goes back through the hole, and then you pull that tight, and that's a good tight knot that's going to hold. It's also a fixed loop. It will not tighten up on itself. So this is a rope, or this is a knot that's used for rescue. Whenever you tie a rope around yourself, you typically tie it bowline, because it won't slip, it won't tighten up on itself. Show you a way to do this with pretty easy. Just twist the rope like that, and then you can wrap that around. You can actually do this one-handed and pull tight. And again, let me make sure my fingers aren't in the way. I'll show you one more time to do it. This is, like I said, my favorite knot. I'm going to tie if it's on a fixed like a tarp eyelet or something like that. This is how I would attach it to the eyelet. So you make a loop, just like that. We're going to take the rope through the loop, go around the leading rope, and back through that loop, and then pull tight. And there you go. You've got a nice tight knot that's going to hold up really well. Okay, so let's say you want to tie out like a tent or something like that, or maybe a tarp that you need to have pulled tight to a stake, something like that. We're going to use a taut line hitch. This is a very simple knot to tie as well. So wrap your rope around the stake or whatever you're tying to, pinch it off, give yourself a little bit of room, pinch it off and take the rope inside. I've got too much rope here, so one turn, one more turn. So you do 2 turns inside that loop, just like that. Hopefully that makes sense and you can see that. And then do 1 turn, one more turn, keep going the same direction, 1 more turn on the above those knots and pull that through. Make a half hitch basically. And once that's tightened up, now to tighten this rope up, all I have to do is pull and slide. I got a knot right there that's stopping me from sliding anymore, but that's gonna hold pretty tight. Now this is not a good knot to use if you've got a something under a load or something like that, because this can slip. I mean, it just slides right up and down. You can slide it down and take it off the stake, put it on there, slide it back up and add tension to it and keep it tight. So this works well for tying out a tent, tying out your tarps. If you need to stretch them tight to something, this is a great knot to use for that. But it's not a good one if you're going to have something that's under a load, like you're trying to tie the load down in the back of a truck bed or something like that. There we go, get that off there. And it unties very easily. Just pull that loop through, and then those two basically just come right undone. But again, if you're going to be tying something that's under a load, this is not the knot you want to use for that, because it can slip. You wouldn't want to use this to tie down, for example, like a load in the back of a truck or something like that. I've got another knot for that. I'll show you where that's at, or show you what that is. Okay, so this is a knot that I've already got this tree tied out because it was a transplant. I didn't want it to fall over. I could probably take that off there now, but we'll show you kind of what this is used for. This would be used, this is a great application, something I need to put a lot of tension on and pull tight, and I don't want that knot to slip. Or if you're going to tie down like a load in the back of a truck bed, if you have a load right here and you're going to wrap a rope over it to tie it down, this works great for that. So I'm going to attach this pole to this pole real quick. I don't want the rope to slip up and down the pole, so I'm going to use 2 half hitches, a double half hitch, and attach that to that pole. We're going to run this rope around, and we want to be able to put tension on this rope, pull it this way. So what I'm going to do is put a slip knot right here in the middle. Just wrap it around and pull it through. That's all you got to do. Show you that one more time. Make a loop, put it through, and pull it tight. Now you do want to make sure that your slip knot works the right way. So when I pull this way, when I pull this way, I tied it backwards. That's why you got to make sure. So I'm going to have to do it the other way. I'll show you what I mean here in just a second. So I just fold it over, take my knot through there. So now when I pull this way, it doesn't tighten up. What happens is, let me show you the first way I did it. I do this all the time. I'm going to be putting a rope through here and pulling on it. I don't want that to tighten up. You can see how that, when I put tension on it, it tightens up on my finger. I don't want that. So I'm going to do it the other way around. Take my left hand, make the loop, tuck that part of the rope through, and now I've got a slip knot. So now it's really easy. All I do is put the rope through, and I can crank on that really tight. Put a lot of tension on that. If I just grab it, let me bring the camera around so you can see better. Okay, hopefully this will be a little bit easier to see. So what I'm going to do is pull this way, that direction on that rope, and I'm putting tension on that. Now to tie it off, pinch that right there, and I'm just going to tie a half hitch in it. Half hitch with a loop. So all I did was fold the rope over and pull a piece of it through and pull it back to tighten it up. Now that's going to hold. I don't care how much you pull on that, jerk on that, whatever, that's going to hold tight. You don't have to worry about that coming loose. And to untie it, all you got to do is pull this tag into this rope. Let me get it out of the way. Pull it, and it's loose. And if you do the slip knot right, you just pull it right out. It's a little tight, so it's binding up on itself. But that will pull through. I just don't have I need to take it off and step on it. Here, I'll do it real quick. I don't know if this is in camera or not, but if I step on the rope and pull, if I can get it to stay down. There, pulled that knot out. So, again, great knot to know. Works great for anything. I'll show you one more time how to tie this. So we're gonna I gotta remember which way to do it. A slip knot, so I just make a loop. I'm gonna take a piece of this, put it through, make a knot, or make a loop right there. When I pull on it, it doesn't tighten up on itself. That's the important thing. Just put my rope, other side of the rope through there, pull on it. I'm getting my arm in the way. Pinch it off, and a half hitch. And that's it. Now, if you had a load under here, you can tie a load down incredibly tight with one of these. Just, it's super easy to use. It works great. And to untie it again, pull, and we're done. I'll see if this will pull out this time really easy. There we go. And it just pulls right out. So hopefully that gives you the idea of what we're talking about. All right, so let me show you just a couple of practical places where I use these knots. So you can tell. There we go. There's the, look for the rope. So this rope right here that's attached to this tarp, that's attached with a bowline knot. And then when I tie it out, there's a screw down here if I need to tie it down to get them out of the weather. I don't know that I want to pull this all the way down. I'll show you in the back because I've already got those pulled down. I don't want to pull these tarps down. It's hot out. They need ventilation. Let's go around back. All right, so this is how I tie these tarps out. Now this is just the trucker's hitch, what I showed you earlier. And there we go, pulled through. There's just a screw that I tie around, and I use this instead of putting a slip knot in. I use the loop from the bowline to put tension on it. So just wrap that around that screw down there, put it through that loop, pull it pretty tight so I can put tension on it. I don't have to worry about it slipping. It's a little bit tricky to get this rope through there. I didn't quite give myself enough room, so it's going to look kind of complicated on camera, but I got to get a piece of this to go through the middle there. There we go. And then put a half hitch in it. And there, that rope's going to hold. It doesn't matter how much wind we get or whatever, that's going to hold on to it. And it's tight. It's got a lot of tension on it, so it's not flopping in the wind or anything like that. It's pulled out really tight. So I use those knots there. I already showed you on the chicken tractor over there where I used a taut line hitch to tie that tarp out, because that's one I'm going to be moving quite frequently, and I need to be able to put tension on it to hold the tarp out. But I'm going to be moving it a lot. I don't want to use a trucker's hitch on that. I want to use a taut line hitch so I can take it off easily and not have to retie the knot every time. And there's a whole bunch of different other knots that you can learn, but really those are the main knots. Those will get you through just about everything that you need when it comes to tying things out. The important thing, I mean, the reason, drop my rope. One of the reasons it's important to know these knots is because, like I said, they're easy to untie. I don't know how many times you've ever had like a friend that doesn't know how to tie knots. They tie a big, a fixed knot or loop in the middle of the knot. You can't ever get it untied, and you end up having to cut your ropes or something like that. Knowing these knots means you don't have to worry about that. You're able to easily untie them. One of those, sometimes they'll get a little bit tight. You may need to get something in there and twist on it just a little bit, like a screwdriver point or something, But for the most part, these are going to be easy to untie, and you're not going to have to worry about cutting your ropes up or anything like that. They hold tight, easy to untie, and they do their job. So I think it is very important that everybody learns at least those knots. Those are the ones I consider to be the most important. Those are the ones that I use almost exclusively. I mean, on just about everything. I'll show you a couple of other knots that I use for a couple of things, but for the most part, it's those. How many knots did we go over? We went over square knot, we went over a sheet bend for attaching ropes together, we went over double half hitches for attaching to a pole or a fixed object, we went over a bowline for attaching to a pole or a fixed object, or as a rescue knot around yourself. You tie that around yourself so it doesn't cinch up and tighten up on you when they're trying to pull you out of a hole or something. So we went through, let's see, I got to count those up again, I lost track. Square knot, sheet bend, bowline, taut line hitch, and trucker's hitch. So there's about 5 knots right there. That trucker's hitch, I use it all the time to tie down loads in the back of a truck. If I'm going to get some lumber or something like that and I need to tie it down, I don't have a ratchet strap handy, it works just as well, if not better than a ratchet strap. And it's very easy to untie. I've never had one come loose. Tie my kayaks down to my truck with that when I'm hauling kayaks around. I use it all the time. It's a great knot to know. Now I will tell you, you got to be careful if you're tying something down that's at all fragile. You can put a tremendous amount of force on, if you put that rope over a load and you're cranking on that rope to pull tension on it, it puts a lot of force on whatever you're tying down, and it can do some damage if it's fragile. So you gotta be a little bit careful with that, but it works great and it holds tight. Let me take you around. I'll show you just a couple of other knots. I'm not going to go through how to tie these knots. They're a little bit more complex, but just so you know what they are, just in case you can look them up and learn how to tie them if you want to. Let's go take a look and I'll show you where I've used them. Okay, this is a garden trellis that I built to put some ties to tie up my tomatillos, and this right here is what they call a shear lashing. Is it a shear lashing? Anyway, this is a lashing. I used that to tie this post onto, this tree branch onto this post right here to hold it up, so I didn't have to worry about putting a screw through it or something like that. So it's not terribly difficult, but there is a little bit more involved. I'm not going to tear it apart and show you how to tie it. These knots right here are, looks like I did bowlines on these and just cut them short just to give me something to hook onto to hold these plants up off the ground. So there's a couple of knots that I've tied. There's a couple of different types of lashing, whether you're tying a right angle or you're tying 2 poles together side by side. I think that's actually the shear lashing. I think this one may be called I can't remember what kind of lashing I can't remember what that's called. Anyway, you can look up lashings. There's ones to use for, like, if you're making a floor and you want to tie boards together side by side so you can make a floor. There's several different types of lashings that you can do. This is one of them that works really well for this type of application when you want to tie something on at a right angle instead of there's a diagonal lashing for if you want to do more like an A-frame type thing. There's a tripod lashing for tying 3 sticks together and making a tripod. There's several different ones that you can learn. You can look those up and you can kind of learn those if you want to. These are not ones that I use incredibly often, but I do use them occasionally just for an application just like this. Otherwise, it's pretty much those 5 main ones that we talked about. Those are the ones I stick with. Well, I guess that's about it for this video. Just pretty short to the point. Just wanted to share that with you. Thank you to, I think it was So and Tear that gave me that idea for a video. Hopefully you learned something from that. Let me know if there's a knot that I didn't cover that you think is an important one that needs to be learned. That's one that you should have on hand. Pretty much those 5 are the ones that I use all the time. Very seldom do I use a sheet bend. I'm not usually attaching small ropes to large ropes. Usually it's same diameter ropes, but everything else in there, I use those almost on a daily basis, every time, all the time. I prefer to use ropes to tie things together than I would to use a screw or a zip tie or something like that, because I can undo it, anyway, you get the idea. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. It was a little something different, not something I usually cover, but hey, maybe it's worth it. Maybe it gave you some helpful tips. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, God bless.